Lewis Hill, last time I spoke to you was 3 years ago. We spoke about video production and your involvement in that world. You're obviously a video production professional, but you're also involved in combat sports as a commentator with Capital Combat Parlay.
Of course,
and
yes.
You are a comedian.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot has happened since we last spoke. My first question is, how has comedy and your involvement in comedy changed your life or your perspective on humanity?
My perspective on humanity.
Big question.
I mean, it's changed my perspective on myself, I think, mostly. You know, it's something I've always wanted to do. And when my brother was doing it, he was really good at it. I kind of wanted to jump in. And I kind of asked him because I didn't want to tread on his scene. I'm like, hey, man, do you mind if I try this? He's like, yeah, go for it. And, yeah, I did my first gig at Pub 101. I don't think there was any audience members. It was all comedians, but a few of them snickered. You know, a few of them had some laughs. And I've been going ever since. It's something that has it changed my perspective on humanity.
I asked that because you're involved. One of the reasons why I want to interview you again is because you're involved in a lot of interesting communities, from combat sports to comedy to the creative industry like broadcasting and video production. So, and you meet all sorts of people, right? And you engage with them and interact with them. And I'm sure comedy has been a very. You must meet a lot of interesting people within the comedic realm, and I'm just curious to know if that dynamic has how it's impacted your perspective and point of view.
Well, there's definitely a lot of interesting people, a lot of very funny people, and a lot of characters, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's like every other scene. It's very similar to the martial arts scene because comedy's hard. It's not something you can really wing and do well at. Like, you kind of have to suffer a little bit, a lot like the martial arts scene. So I think it weeds out some of the people who, you know, would do something like that. And so you get these characters who have built character by bombing, and bombing's terrible. It's the worst. But then you overcome yourself psychologically, you overcome the audience, and you come back and do it again. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. And it's a very hard thing to take criticism like that, because it is criticism every time an audience laughs or doesn't laugh, and make adjustments, because you have to be honest with yourself. So it's very similar to martial arts like that, which is also very similar to filmmaking. I mean, you're putting a product out there to be viewed and judged, and in the time of haters.
Right.
Quite frankly, you know.
Wow.
And so there's definitely, I have so much respect for stand-up comedians, martial artists, filmmakers, because I know what they go through. And to see people succeed at that, it takes a lot. There's a lot that it takes to get that done. So nothing but respect for all those characters. But yeah, you get some wonky characters in everything. You've seen it.
Sure.
And you've seen a lot of my shows. You've met a lot of the comedians.
Yeah.
All different walks of life, all different styles. And I always try, like, once I'm done performing, I turn into an audience member really quick. Like, I'm not that comedian who doesn't laugh. I laugh at everything. I think I'm a very good audience member. But I try and learn from, because everyone has a different style. I'm like, can I take something from that? Can I take something from that? And just always try and build. And like martial arts, like let's say you go to our Canada Roll on a Tuesday, and you have a bad day, right? Like, right. That's when you're learning, you know. So, yeah, it's all character building, and yeah.
What's the ritual like as far as pre-show performance? Let's say you're performing at a show. What does Lewis Hill do in order to prepare himself for that performance?
I get really nervous, terribly nervous. Some other comedians are surprised how nervous I still get. And I rehearse. I'm in the mirror, repeating my act, looking at myself, little things where I'm like, that delivery was a little weak, or this could be stronger, or I need to pause more here. And because I never want to, I've only forgotten a joke once, and I hated it. I hated how it made me feel after, and
Did you forget it because you didn't practice, or what happened there?
It was a very new joke, and it was kind of at the beginning of my comedy. Let's call it a career, even though I'm not really making bank on this, Garmamie.
Well, whatever, man. You've been
a couple
performing
domestic beers every now and then, but I'll take that.
But you've been doing, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, you've been doing really well in that in comedy. You performed in Sault Ste. Marie, your hometown.
That was fun.
And we'll get into that. I want to hear about that. But just speak to us about. You were just going to elaborate about having forgotten your like what happens in that situation. Was do you ad lib? Do you
well
what's the angle? What's the gimmick?
When I first started, I really didn't ad lib a lot. I wasn't comfortable freelancing. I wanted stuff committed to memory so much that I never wanted to leave that to chance. Of course, now I discovered freelancing up there is some of the best comedy you can do. And I think the first time I really did it, you were there. Yeah. We were interviewing. We were at Evolution interviewing some fighters, right?
Yes.
The Carriers.
Yes.
My Carrier Senior and my Carrier Junior. And then I didn't have time to get nervous. I didn't have time to do anything because we were busy. And I got up on stage. Damn. And that's when that Australian guy asked me, "What's a snuff film?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "All right, let's do this." And I went off for 2 minutes.
Right.
And I remember you saying you were impressed.
I was, because you immediately addressed it and you incorporated it. You incorporated that energy into your act.
Yeah.
Because I think you had mentioned that you want to perform up there, and you as far as crowd interaction and stuff. And then not every comedian, correct me if I'm wrong, necessarily likes that sort of interference sometimes.
Of course, yeah. There's all different ways, and I didn't either, but I rolled with it. And
you did, and you took care of that. And if anything, this Australian person now is probably
he bought me a beer after.
Oh, there you go. There you go. You converted him into a fan. You converted into someone who's part of your act. Yeah. But as far as let's go back to ritual. When you're practicing, how do you know that your practice was a good practice? Because you're practicing in front of yourself, in front of a mirror. Yeah.
It's really hard. Here's the thing about that. I'm never satisfied. I never think it's good. I never think I had a good performance. And that's something at the beginning, which, I've only been doing about 2 years, maybe a bit more. It's still the beginning, realistically.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm just never satisfied. I always feel every time I go up, I have something to prove. And I think a part of that is because we talked about, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a comedian. I do the fight commentary. I do fight media. And of course, I work in the television production realm as well.
Right.
I'm busy writing music. I'm doing all these things. So I'm not at the comedy clubs as much as these young, hungry comedians.
Sure.
Right? I'm not there as much as them. They're there every night vying for spots. So when I come in, I just feel like an outsider.
Interesting.
And I think I perform better that way. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say I get along with everybody. As you know, I think
Lewis Hill is quite the diplomat.
Well, comedy is like freelance television production. It's built on relationships, I think, and you get a lot of opportunities building those relationships. And I don't mean phony. I mean true bonded relationships. So, yeah, I don't know. There's never a moment where I'm like, hey, that was really good. So, and that includes the practice. It's always this terrible feeling like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Is that because there's no immediate response from audience members because you're performing in front of yourself as far as your practice goes? Is that the instant gratification of like, in terms of, hey, was that a good joke? Was that a bad joke? How are people reacting?
Yeah, well, a lot of times it's, you've done the joke so many times, it works. But yeah, there's points where I know it's weaker. There's points I know it could use a little tweaking, and it's tough when you don't have a tweak for it at that moment. So you're practicing and you're like, I need to change this bit, but I don't know what that is yet. And I got to be at Yuck Yucks in an hour.
Man.
So it's.
It sounds like a lot of pressure.
I'm a nervous wreck, man.
Sure,
but
sure.
I like that. I like pressure. That's one thing I've discovered is I really like high pressure situations, and I think I do well in them, whether I feel I did well in them or not. Ends up I do good, and that's, that with commentary or back, competing in jiu-jitsu back in the day or anything like that. I like that high pressure. I prepare more now to avoid high pressure situations, but it all just adds to anxiety at the end of the day. Like, dude, I'm a wreck.
But it's interesting because having worked with you over the last couple of years, even before Capital Combat Parlay, obviously
we go way back.
We do. You know, we've worked together professionally and on side projects, so on and so forth. One thing is I've noticed is you come prepared, right? And you have you're organized. You're an organized person.
Really?
Well, I think so.
You may be the only person to ever say that. Yeah.
Well, there's a plan. Like this is what we need to do. This is what needs to happen. So you do have a objective and intent, and you follow through it. And I could see how that kind of aids as far as any project, right, that you're involved in, because it's project management more or less. What aspect? So as a comedian, Louis, what are all audiences the same, and how do you read? Because you're good at reading the vibe in a room, generally speaking. I've noticed. How do you read the vibe in a room? And are all comedy audiences? Are they all the same? Do you know if they're gonna pop for this joke just by scanning the room and assessing who's there? Or
they're really not the same, and I will scan the audience for age. And because I'm older, I'm in my 40s, so a lot of my jokes, I talk about being young, so that'll be in the 80s and 90s. Millennials won't relate to that, so maybe I'll switch it up if it's a room full of millennials. Our all audience is the same, not even close. As a matter of fact, you can get 2 consecutive nights at a club with kind of the same demographic and have 2 completely different shows. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and the host, of course, warm them up. The weather. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into an audience that affect how they're going to laugh, when they're going to laugh. Seating, spacing, lighting. They don't want to feel vulnerable.
Right. Wow.
But there's I've listed maybe 5 things. There's a million things that affect an audience, and I don't know what they are yet, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Because sometimes you bomb.
Right.
And you're like, well, this is the exact same set I did, last week at the club, and you felt like Superman after it was done, and now you feel like Lex Luthor, I don't know what those things are yet. I'm trying to figure that out. But I know sometimes you get an angry audience. And
at a comedy show.
Yeah, sometimes you will get an angry audience. I've
really?
seen it. Yeah.
But don't people go to, correct me if I'm wrong, don't you go to comedy because you want to take that frown and turn it upside down and laugh and you know what I mean?
And sometimes they go there and the laughs don't come right away, so maybe there's a resentment. Right. You should be funnier. You should do this. You should
wait a minute. You know what? It's funny. I remember one. Okay.
Yeah, go tell the story. This is good.
I remember one time I heard someone say a joke, and I think I know what you're saying. I think
it's something. When I used to go to comedy shows, I view it completely differently now. Obviously, being on the other end, but yeah, sometimes I'd be like, that person's not funny. And then, now I'd look at the joke and be like, oh, they were trying new stuff, or they were doing this. I mean, it's all trial and error. There's no, the perfect joke doesn't land the first time ever. You got to work it out.
Right.
Or at least it certainly doesn't for me. I have to work it out. So that's a painful process, and a lot of times it's at the audience's expense. So when they get angry, I can get a little rude and tell some rude jokes and kind of almost dark. Play to that level, go dark, and I've been able to turn it around sometimes, man. And it's the weirdest. I never thought that would be the way to do it.
Huh.
I thought.
Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to pay to play Garmamie. Yeah. Well, there's jokes I have about.
Or give us a situation where you took it into that dark spot because the energy from audience members?
Well, there was one time in part of my act, I ask a rhetorical question just so I can follow it up. And somebody, I think the question is, have you heard of this? You know? And somebody, some angry person, you know, arms crossed in the audience goes, no. And without even thinking, I just went, well, now you have, motherfucker.
Wow.
And
For real?
Yeah, and the crowd loved it. And I didn't even realize I did it. It just reacted. And,
Holy moly.
My girlfriend talks about, you know, when I get annoyed in public and I put on the mean face, it could scare a few people. I think it scared them a little bit.
I've seen
You've
that
seen the mean
face, man.
face.
That is
and it was
that is a frightening
it was funny,
face,
but
bro.
it was a poignant. Now you know, motherfucker. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
It's my show.
Right.
And he did.
Bam.
And the audience, they loved it. They loved that that somebody turned on the heel in the audience, and they were waiting for someone to do that. And I think that's a situation where it turned it around. I've had other times too where it's nothing turned it around, and it's tough. It's tough not to address that, because I've seen comedians go up there and say, "Oh, you guys are a terrible audience," or whatever.
Wow, they actually say that. Directly or indirectly?
I mean, not verbatim, but yes,
Okay.
directly or indirectly say something like that, or, oh, we're going to remember this night, or something like that. And I never want to do that, because it's always valuable. Do you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
It's like getting your butt kicked in Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
That's when you're learning. You know,
it's part of the progression, right?
When you do stuff that you're good at all the time, and you feel like a champion all the time, you're just setting yourself up for a huge failure, in my opinion, which is why I like that I'm never satisfied. And sometimes I go off stage and I'll just kind of like shrug, like, oh, whatever. But comedians have a way of looking at it. They look at me and they're like, you're really confident up there, you're doing it. And in my mind, I'm like, no, that was terrible, man. But I think under the pressure, I put out something that's different. I perform differently than I'm feeling inside, which has worked.
When you mentioned bombing in general, as far as when comedians bomb, can you elaborate on that? Because people may not know what that means. But and I'll ask you a follow up after. So what is bombing?
Well, look, this is performance art. You know, it's writing, it's performance art, and the validation is the laughs. And without that validation, it can be very horrible. And it's tough, you know. I go in high energy. So when there's no laughter, and a lot of times there is no laughter, not as much as it used to be, but there's times where there's simply none. And to keep that energy up it feels like you're faking it. You go, you know, you get off stage, you start rethinking, like, why do I do this? This is,
wow.
It's
man,
weird.
it's high pressure.
It's humiliating.
Whoa,
and,
moly. Really?
You know, and doing it in front of the peers too, you know, in front of other comedians, you know, who I respect and I'm learning from. When you bomb in front of them, you feel like you let them down in a way as well. You let the club down, you let whatever. And I get put on shows a lot first.
Right, you go bullet.
I go bullet a lot, which something I'm really proud of. I don't know why. I don't know why they're putting me bullet, but they are, because they trust me to.
That's a vote of confidence.
They trust me to bring the show.
Yeah.
So when I don't, you know what I'm saying? When it fails, I just feel like, you know, because I've had people say, "Hey, look, you're bullet," because I know you're gonna amp up the crowd, and then when it doesn't happen, you just feel like I let the whole show down now because I've set the tone for the night. So it's high pressure but it's good. I mean, things that are hard to do are good for you.
Sure.
This is what growth is about, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you can go and do the same thing over and over again and feel like a champion, or be a big fish in a small pond. That's not good for anybody. It's about, you got a limited time on this planet, some shorter than others. Growth and evolution is what I think the key to happiness is.
A lot of there's a lot of highs. It sounds like when one performs.
Yeah.
And there's a probability and possibility of lows in the form of bombing on stage, as you described it. For comedians, how do they find for this comedian, for Louis Hill, how do you find a balance? How do you get back on stage, let's say after a super high and or a super low? How do you transition from the unpredictability of like a crowd that may not even pop for a joke?
I don't know. Well, when you fail, it's either,
as far as the material, how do you continue? Because it sounds to me like you're always, your R&D is the performance. Your research and development is in the performance, right? You're oh, they laughed at this joke. I'm assuming it's a joke on, say, I don't know, coffee. I was gonna say something else.
Yeah, sure.
But like, I guess the question I'm asking is, how do you find themes to explore within your comedy act?
Well, and that's interesting too. Because I've had nights where I've tried out new stuff, and it hasn't worked, and I felt like, oh, I gotta ditch this material. This is terrible. But then I'll go back and I'll ditch it for a while because there's this shame that you feel like, I can't believe I tried something so dark, or I can't believe I tried something so unpolished. And it's weird, but then you re-examine it later, and you look, well, there was no one in the audience. It was an open mic. It wasn't a club. And so you try it again. You try it again in a different venue and see. And because my mind will go back to stuff like that and go, no, that's funny. Like, that is funny. Someone will find that funny. And yeah, you got to try it. So that's what I do now. I'll use club shows to try out as opposed to open mics. I'll still do open mics. Of course, they're some of my favorite shows, but I'll try out new stuff a lot at club shows in between established stuff. Just so, like, I'll get the audience on my side, and then I'll throw some new stuff, take stock of where the laughs come from, see where there's a dead spot. But then, if they don't like the new stuff, I'll reel them back in with some good stuff at the end and get them back on my side. So to me, it's how I evaluate my stuff. I think I was doing it wrong and being pretty hard on myself, which I'm going to continue to do. But yeah, it's just because it fails doesn't mean it's not funny. Sometimes it is. Sometimes,
right.
In the beginning, I was trying to write new stuff all the time, and you get. Not arrogance the wrong word, but you get excited to do new stuff all the time, and maybe it's not ready, and then and then afterwards you're like, no, they'll still find it funny, but afterwards you're like, Jesus Christ, man, you knew it wasn't ready. Why did you do that? Let's go drinking.
How would you describe the Ottawa community as far as the comedy community here in Ottawa? How would you describe it for people who've never been to a comedy show? If you were to pitch to them, hey, you should come to a comedy show, and they ask you why, what would you tell them? And how would you describe the scene here in Ottawa?
The scene's pretty cool. I mean, I've done some traveling, but not a lot. I'm a baby at this. That's the reality. I'm a baby at this. So this is the scene I know, and it's cool, and so there's a lot of cool people. There's a lot of cool comedians. There's a lot of very supportive people. There's a lot of people who take an interest in my act and will pull me aside after and say, hey man, I when you said this, like, what if you tried this?
Really?
And I take that as such a compliment, because they don't have to. They could let me crash and burn on my own, but if they take an interest in it, it means they see something there. So it's really supportive that way. And like I said, I've made a lot of really good friends even though as I said, I still feel like an outsider. I made a lot of good friends. I've made some cool videos with some cool comedians, as you've seen.
Sure. How are you an outsider? I don't like. I understand. I kind of understand why you're saying that, but how are you? How are you an outsider? You're part of the community, aren't you? Are you?
I am part of the community.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I feel old, man.
What do you mean?
There's a lot of young comedians and young blood. It's the same way in martial arts. Like, I feel old, and I got a late start in comedy, and so there's a lot of things the young people can do. When you're younger, you have liberties. You can go to more things. You don't have as many responsibilities. And if you do have responsibility, it's university, which involves a lot of drinking and neglecting anyway.
Sure.
So it's not a lack of relating, but it's a lack of, man, I'm tired. this show's already past my bedtime. I need to go to bed. And like I said before, I'm not there 5 nights a week.
Are some of these people there 5 nights?
Absolutely.
So it's like a dojo almost. People are rolling,
and when they're not there performing, they're there watching and learning. Like,
interesting.
There's a real dedicated crew here in Ottawa, and man, like some of my favorite comedians are comedians that I perform with, which is really, really cool to say, you know, and people who will hire me for an act, and it means a lot to me. So yeah, I feel like an outsider because I'm old and because I'm busy, and sometimes I feel like I'm not dedicating. It's not that I'm not dedicating to my craft as much as other people, but I'm not dedicating the time to be in the club every night and be in the. And quite simply, I don't have that time.
You're a busy person.
I'm a busy person, and I like that. That's who I am. I wear a lot of hats.
Sure,
that's the reality. And comedy has helped commentary. Commentary has helped comedy.
Interesting.
It's all helped filmmaking.
Give me an example. I was just going to ask you about that. The crossover between the performance art as far as comedy and the performance art as far as commentary. How has comedy helped your commentary game and vice versa? Vice versa.
Well, I mean, it's that old. What do they call it? Mic skills. You got skills on the mic. So and it's about practice. It's about anything else. So the more you do it, the better you're going to be at it. So that includes the commentary as well. And I can, at first I like injecting humor in it, into the commentary. Not all the time, but I wasn't sure everyone would get it. But the martial arts community has really responded to it. They like it. At least from what people have told me, they like it and they appreciate that. So, it's who I am. But yeah, it's mic skills, it's practice, it's stage fright, getting used to when things go wrong or you make a mistake, being able to correct it, and doing interviews, because doing interviews is tough, man. And the toughest part about it for me is names.
Right.
I forget names, and it's not this recently happened with my interview. I had to get the guest to introduce himself because I kept screwing up his name. And it's a lot of times it's a French accent. I'm working on my French. I'm trying, but I'm not good at it yet, and it's really hard for me.
One thing I gotta say, you have you have a lot of respect for combat sports competitors. Whenever we're doing commentary or even interviewing post-fight, pre-fight, whatever the fuck, you have a lot of respect for them. Even in the commentary, you always have a balanced approach when you're telling the story, right? Because that's what commentary is. You're telling the story, but you're very objective in your commentary, and that's a standard of professionalism, quite frankly. But it seems to me like, but through and through, like that's who you are, right? You're very diplomatic, and you're all about respecting people's space, respecting their capabilities. And I've seen it in commentary, working with you. I've been working together forever on commentary. Forever, yeah. But I noticed that, and it's great to have for me personally. It's great to work with you because I know you're the neutralizer. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms
I do know what you're saying. That's something. Fortunately, I had to miss the last 2 commentary shows with you.
Yeah.
Real life gets busy. One,
like a comedy, man. You've been touring,
one I was performing in the Sioux, and the other one, well, I'm taking a vacation with family. So that's
right.
That's the reality. But I call the fights like I see them. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there was times where we saw a shorter guy keep trying to stand and bang with a tall, lanky guy when he was having success on the ground. So I will say, I question his tactics at this point. Right. But I respect fighters so much.
You do, yeah.
For what they do.
Yeah.
And, I've competed in martial arts. You've competed in martial arts. It's not just going out there and putting on a show, and that's where I said it draws parallels with comedy. It's preparation. It's questioning yourself. It's psychology. And it's, quite frankly, it's losing before you win. It's losing. If you're in the right place, you're losing a lot. because you're learning before you compete. And I love martial arts.
Of course, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Everyone who does martial arts, there is a connection, an unspoken connection that people who train have. I really believe that. And that's why, Anthony Bourdain dying was so hard on the martial arts community. I've never met the man.
Yeah.
I liked him as a host, but he started jiu-jitsu late, and it's very hard to do. It's very hard to do at a young age. It's got to be murder to do it at an old age. He started late. He competed. I believe he got his purple belt. So I know.
Was he purple?
He was a purple.
Holy moly!
I know what that takes to go through that ringer. You know what I'm saying? So everyone who I'm commentating or interview, whatever the art is, whatever you're doing, there is a connection that martial artists have, whether they compete against each other or not. There is a connection there. There's a respect there, and
a brotherhood,
a sisterhood.
Yeah.
If you do martial arts or if you coach, or then I respect you, I love you. You're my hero, honestly. And that sounds like platitudes, but these are the people I respect the most in the world. People who do hard things and achieve.
Now you're obviously heavily involved in the local martial arts community. Have fans, as far as mixed martial arts fans and so on, locally, have they crossed over? Have you seen people cross over into comedy because of Lewis Hill?
As in to try comedy or come see me?
Come see you.
I definitely.
Nice.
And yeah, I've seen a lot of fighters, a lot of coaches come see me. It's tough, right? Because the shows that I'm doing, because I'm not doing a lot of weekends yet. I'm not doing those are for the touring professionals. I'll open for them sometimes, not as much as I'd like to, and not as much as I will, because I will do more of it. So if I'm performing a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday night, well, that's jiu-jitsu practice or that's Muay Thai practice.
Right.
But yeah, I've had the people from Arcana come out. I've had the people from Ottawa and Fight and Fitness come out. I've had people like Nick Wang came out and see me. Keith Minimanako, he saw me. I didn't even know he was there. He just messaged me after and said, "Yeah, I was at the show tonight." So it's really, really cool. And all the other martial artists always say, "I gotta come see your show. I gotta come see your show." I get it. Everyone's got real life. Everyone's got things to do. They'll get there when they get there. But the support has been really, really cool. And I want more martial artists to come out because I love them, and I want to showcase a different set of skills. So
what does it mean for you to be involved in comedy? As far what does comedy do for you on a personal level?
It's about continuing to be creative and about continuing to learn and grow. And look, being in the limelight and getting some laughs, that's really cool too. Take that humbleness out of it. It's fun. It's cool, get your ego a bit big and then get it shattered the next night. It's all about growth, but continuing to write. And like I said, you and I have worked on comedy web series together for years, and I always felt like stand-up comedy was something I was missing, something I've always wanted to try, and I just never did.
Interesting.
So once I tried it, I never looked back. Like it's fun, man. It's a lot of fun. So what does it do for me? It's fun. It's another hobby that I don't have time for, and I don't know. I find it really rewarding. It's that adrenaline. It's high level.
It's like a fight.
It's like a fight.
Yeah,
it's a lot like a fight.
Recently, you performed at a big show in Sault Ste. Marie. Can you tell us a little bit about the show?
Yeah, that was cool. It was for the Twin City Tattoo Convention. A friend of mine was organizing that. I hadn't seen him since like high school, 20 years. But he messaged me and said, "Hey, I want to do a comedy show. Nobody does that here. Everyone does bands. I want to try something different. Can you put together some, a list of people?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "If they're from the Sioux, sponsors like that." I'm like, "Okay, well, my brother's also from the Sioux. I'm from the Sioux." And we got a headliner, Mike Dambra, and Ryan Denny was the MC. And those guys are like heroes to me. They're just amazing at what they do, and I'm such a big fan, so it was really cool to share the stage with them. But it was an adventure, going on the road, seeing how the professional comedians live. But I'll tell you, the Sioux came out and they were supportive, and I mentioned earlier, like in the days of haters, because it is the hater time. Don't read the comments, Garmamie.
Really?
Oh yeah. But people I hadn't seen in 20 years came to the show.
Wow.
People's friends' parents came to the show. Old neighbors came to the show.
Damn.
Like it was so supportive, and it meant so much to me. Because sometimes you feel like, I'm sure there's people that are sick of my Facebook posts about comedy. Hey, because I post, I'm here, I'm performing here, I'm performing here. It's about advertising and getting people out.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that rubs people the wrong way after a while. But there was none of that, man. It was really incredible to get that level of support. And there was an after party, and they had a van. They drove us there, and I didn't buy a drink all night, man. Sault Ste. Marie got me nice and liquefied. I'll tell you that.
Will you be organizing as far as doing more shows outside of Ottawa? And
that's the plan. Yeah. I'm. Well, when this airs, I'll probably be in British Columbia, not for comedy, but I'm going to try and seek out a comedy club there and see if I can get on. And yeah, I want to do Montreal. I want to do Kingston. I want to do more, and it's just dedicating the time to do that. And
How important is that, Lewis, for one's career trajectory as far as performing outside of?
It's very important. Setting up bases where other cities know you and they want you back. I mean, it's very important, and the only way to get that fan base is to do it. So, yeah, I want to take time, and I'm not sure it's going to happen this year. Maybe in the fall. I want to take time and try and do a tour. Like, I'm not the Rolling Stones. It's not going to be like Europe, but maybe do like 3 cities or something, and take a couple weeks and get as many shows as I can in that, or even take a couple weekends and try and do it. Just try and, up the game, as they say.
What sort of feedback have friends and family given you and fellow comedians as far as your comedy style and the subjects you tackle?
Friends and family? Well, I mean, my brother is a very well-established comedian here in Ottawa. He's very funny. So
what's his name? You got
Aaron Hill. Yeah. Why didn't I? Jeez, it's early. I'm doing an interview in the morning, drinking coffee.
Sunday morning.
This is weird. So Aaron Hill. So I'll run a lot of stuff by him, and I'll say, I'm stuck. I'm writing this. I know it's funny. I'm stuck. Can you help me out? So he'll give me his ideas on that. My parents have come to see me. Matter of fact, I think it was not this Christmas, but last Christmas, December 21st, my parents were in the same room, which is very odd unless it's a courtroom. And so there was a lot of pressure to perform, and it just happened. You put it on Facebook, they see it, they make plans to come see you, and then they're together in a room. They sat at the same damn table.
Wow.
Dude, it was insane.
Were they laughing?
I don't know. I hope so. I know my brothers weren't laughing because they were sitting with him, and I think they were really nervous. They're like, Lewis, don't do that again. But I think they think I'm funny. I think they think Aaron's funnier, which is kind of true. So it doesn't. Yeah, I'll get there.
Is there rivalry or no? Are there any local comedians, kind of like combat sports, where, or even if you're rolling at a dojo and there's someone that says same belt rank, whatever, same weight, same height, is there a local rival that?
Do I have a local rival?
Yeah, like friendly. I'm not talking about like whatever.
I don't think so. I mean, comedy clubs do a lot of competitions. Mm-hmm. So then everyone gets their game face on, and it's fine. But I don't look. This is man versus himself, or to be less sexist, person versus him or herself.
Right.
It's never about another comedian. It's never about. Same as martial arts. You have a lot of training partners. You have opponents. It's never about that. You're battling yourself at the end of the day. So maybe I'm someone's rival and I don't know it. And if I am. Awesome. Look, it's a selfish thing. It's about me.
There you go. What for someone who's got an interesting set of skill sets as far as video production, performance art, and martial arts and combat sports, both as a practitioner and an analyst, commentator type. Will we be seeing potentially more of Lewis Hill web series? Because back in the day, you had. Remember,
I had a lot of comedy web series, and they gained traction.
Yes,
like I was interviewed by I Run magazine. I had my picture in that. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking is, do you plan on doing more web series or?
Well, I'm always thinking about how to tie in, a martial arts, not comedy, but something that I can participate in, put on the web, where it's funny and showcases local martial arts skills. So yeah, I don't think I have that formula yet, but I'm always thinking about it, and there's something brewing. Definitely.
How would you describe what are some of the local, as far as martial arts in Ottawa gets, who in your opinion is a rising local star? I'm asking Lewis Hill, the Capital Combat Parlay, Lewis Hill. Who is someone that we need to track and watch out for in the coming year or so?
Well, all the Patenode boys, they've recently signed with TKO. I believe 4 of them have, and man, Isaac Blaze, he's that guy blends levels together and martial arts together, from ground to striking to clinch. He's like water, like that old Bruce Lee adage. Very excited to see him fight, as well as the rest of the Patenode boys. But yeah, Isaac Blaze is someone, when I watch him even drilling, I'm just like, whoa. Look at this kid. And he's so explosive and he hits hard, man. You do not want to get hit by that guy. But he'll sub you too. Don't worry about that.
Confident as well. He's a confident kid.
He should be.
Yeah.
And of course, my older brother, Daryl Hill's a jiu-jitsu phenom, as it's interesting. He's older than me. He's mid-40s, but I've never seen anyone pick up jiu-jitsu like him. And I hope he competes. I want him to compete. I want him to, he has competed before. He took 2 jiu-jitsu classes and then got a second place at a Bushido grappling championship. But that's Daryl Hill, man. That's what he does.
Over the years with Capital Combat Parlay, now I think it's been, 2 years since we've been
I believe
running
so,
this thing? Yeah. What are your thoughts on Capital Combat Parlay? How is CCP doing?
CCP is doing good. There was a little lull recently. You and I were traveling in different directions a lot, just being out of town. It's tough to get together when that happens, but that's real life. And there was a lack of shows.
Yes.
Ontario's going through that.
Yes.
Garbage right now.
Yeah.
Of course, Nick Castiglia recently published that he thinks he has a solution for it, which, I mean, God bless that man. He never stops working, and
seriously,
he never stops working for the martial artists in this community, which is, so I think there was a little lull, but we're back. After this, I got to go home and edit because we have some more interviews that we've done, and we have shows coming up. People are calling us for more interviews and stuff like that. So, and how's it doing? I think it's doing really good. We weren't sure how this would be perceived
from the get-go. Yeah,
from the get-go. But again, in the time of haters, the amount of support that we get blows my mind, and just even emails we get from people. Hey, we saw you at the show. Thank you for what you're doing. And then the other thing is, martial artists in this region open up to us on and off the record. And it's something that we've respected and will continue to respect. We're not TMZ. We will never do that. But, they really open up to us, and particularly off the record. And it kind of got me thinking, I think the martial arts scene needs someone to talk to sometimes.
Totally.
I mean, it's a high pressure game. It's psychology. It's trauma. I think talking, being a sounding board helps.
Totally.
Because, people have told us stuff that's very private, and we respect it, and I thank them for it.
And it's been a very interesting journey for sure, and we certainly learned a lot. Where can people find you if they want to come see Lewis Hill perform? If you're listening to this, you need to go see this man perform here in Ottawa. Where can we find Lewis Hill? How do we follow you?
Go on my Facebook is an open book. Lewis Hill on Facebook. I'm Louisifer everywhere else. So Louisifer on Instagram, Louisifer on Twitter, and find me, friend request me, follow me, come see a show. I will put on a very good show. I will do my best, and I think you will be very happy and get your money's worth. Garmamie, you've been to a lot of my shows from the beginning. You know.
Lewis Hill is must-see comedy in Ottawa.
Thank you, my friend.